Hi, I'm Liam Spradlin, design lead at TouchLab and a Google developer expert in UI, UX, and visual design. Today we're going to talk about innovating material, or using the material design principles to create unique and engaging experiences of your own. But what do I mean by that exactly? In my last video, we established that the Google design spec is exhaustive, but it isn't that prescriptive, meaning that even within the material design principles, there's plenty of room to explore. So in this video, we'll take a look at what the principles are, and then a few example apps that innovate on those principles to create unique experiences without breaking the material metaphor. But first, what can be changed, or kind of how can we extend things without creating an uncomfortable or unfamiliar experience for the user? To answer that question, we'll look at what belongs to the system versus what belongs to your app. First, what belongs to the system? A lot of this category is kind of atomic level components like text input, sliders, list controls like radio buttons and checkboxes, toggles, snack bars, popover menus, things like that. These components form an underlying thread of familiarity for the user, so on the platform they'll feel comfortable as they move from one app to the next. So what does that leave for your app then? Basically everything else, as long as you keep the material principles in mind. So zooming out to those principles, there are three main ones that we'll cover: surfaces, or the material metaphor, bold graphic and intentional design, and meaningful motion. First, surfaces, or the material metaphor. This refers to the idea that interfaces are made out of a paper-like substance, or a material. This material is based in reality, but can also supersede reality by connecting to other materials, or separating, or animating in ways that a sheet of paper in real life just couldn't do. But this material allows users to form fast mental models of how your app works. So for example, if in real life you set a glass of water on a table, you know that the glass of water isn't going to fly up to the ceiling. From past experiences, you've learned that gravity is likely to keep the glass of water right where you put it. In the same way, in your interface, users can learn and feel confident with how things work based on the structure of these sheets of paper. Next, bold graphic and intentional design. And this really refers to things like typography, imagery, and color, and how these elements are used to create hierarchy and focus in your app. It can tell users what's important, what to do next, what things are interactive, or just draw attention to new features. And meaningful motion, and there are really three concepts here. First, the user is the prime mover. This means that the user is in control of the motion, so they'll be the ones deciding what they see and what feedback is happening. Next is continuity and object permanence. So you can see an example of this here with the notification panel from Android N. As you expand down, that top row of icons moves visually to its new spot in the fully expanded panel. Because you see that, you have a sense of continuity, that those buttons are the same buttons that you're now seeing now that the panel is open. And finally, it's efficient and coherent. Animations don't need to be too elaborate, and they should be serving a purpose. They should be doing something for the user to communicate what's happening or what the user has done. So now we'll quickly look at a few example apps and see how they go beyond the spec on these material principles. First, I'll talk about an app called 5217 that I worked on and how it uses surfaces to innovate on material. First, each minute of the timer counts down by sliding a full sheet down in front of the user. The numbers are printed on these sheets, so it provides a smooth transition with visual interest. We also emphasize the elevation of the system UI. The system UI is said to be painted on the back of the display's glass, so it's already elevated, but we wanted it to match the canvas color for an immersive experience while still noting that it doesn't belong to the app, so we emphasize that elevation for some extra separation. Next is Nick Butcher's Plaid app. You can see here that the main content scrolls over the toolbar to provide focus. Once you open a piece of content, you can over-scroll down to reveal the context behind it, which is the full list. Or if you scroll up, the imagery itself becomes its own surface with the rest of the content flowing underneath. Bold graphic and intentional design can be seen in the Wall Street Journal app. Typography is really important for newspapers, so the Wall Street Journal has used it here for the tab labels, body text, and headlines. They've also used full-width imagery to draw the reader's eye to important graphics. Another example is Instagram's redesign. Now that the interface is almost completely black and white, the focus is really put on user images. And meaningful motion. In the Robinhood app, you can see that it draws focus to the fingerprint reader with this fingerprint animation, and then once you're in the app, your stock prices update live with rolling numbers, so your eye goes straight to that number to see what your total is for the day. Another example is Weather Timeline, and this is a smaller touch, but Weather Timeline has an animated icon set that draws your eye vertically down the list of weather predictions and also just adds a delightful detail to each card. So having seen those examples, remember, almost everything else in the system belongs to your app. As long as you keep the material principles in mind, there's a lot of room for innovation. Thanks for watching. I'm Liam Spradlin, design lead at TouchLab, and you can reach me at @LiamSpradlin on Twitter anytime.